War. War never changes. That is until now, as autonomous AI, robots, drones, and aircraft are starting to emerge on the field of battle.
U.S. Air Force successfully tests fully autonomous planes over California.
AI flew X-62 Vista during a simulated dogfight against manned F-16. While safety pilots were on board at all times, the AI agent successfully demonstrated that it could safely conduct AI versus human within visual range engagements. So the U.S. Air Force just announced that last year the X-62 Vista was successfully flown by an artificial intelligence agent during a simulated dogfight against a human pilot on an F-16. The breakthrough, for which the team has been nominated as finalist for the 2023 for a trophy as part of DARPA's Air Combat Evolution program. The potential for autonomous air-to-air combat has been imaginable for decades, but the reality has remained a distant dream up until now. Now, the press release did not disclose when that testing happened, but it did mention that they went from initial installation of these live AI agents to demonstrating them in less than a calendar year. The first flights controlled by AI agents were performed in December 2022. The testing happened in the airspace above Edwards Air Force Base, California. So if you kind of know where Lancaster is, that's probably a few hours northeast of LA. It's somewhere in that direction. Initial flight safety was built up using defensive maneuvers, according to the info released, before switching to offensive, high-aspect nose-to-nose engagements where the dogfighting aircraft got as close as 2,000 feet at 1,200 miles per hour. In total, the team made over 100,000 lines of flight-critical software changes across 21 test flights. Now, they had safety pilots on board just in case everything went south, but at no point did they have to activate the safety switch. DARPA's ACE program aims to develop trusted, scalable, human-level AI-driven autonomy for air combat by using human-machine collaborative dogfights as its challenge problem. So in 2020, these AI agents beat experienced F-16 fighters in a simulated dogfight. So inside a game, it was beating experienced F-16 fighters as early as 2020. 2020 is, by the way, I think the earliest recorded example of an autonomous drone attacking and taking out human combatants. So specifically, we're talking about a drone that's not controlled by a human pilot, one that pursues and chooses targets on its own. Military-grade autonomous drones can fly themselves to a specific location, pick their own targets, and kill without the assistance of a remote human operator. And in March 2020, a United Nations report in the military conflict in Libya says such a drone, known as a lethal autonomous weapon system, has made its wartime debut. The previous article said it wasn't confirmed, but I believe this was confirmed. There were multiple sources confirming this was indeed the case. And it's important to note here that having autonomous technology like this is very attractive from a military perspective, because if you're controlling a drone, if a human being is actively controlling it, it is more vulnerable to attack, to something shutting down its communications, jamming it, etc. A drone that is fully autonomous has less vectors for attack of somebody attacking it, hacking it or taking it over or just shutting it down in some way. There's a really cool channel on YouTube that's oriented more for kids. You might have seen the whole octopus in a maze. You might have seen the squirrels trying to get through various mazes, either the thumbnails or maybe if you have kids, you might have seen the videos themselves. The glitter bomb car thief gets instant karma, the final glitter bomb 6.0. But a few days ago, they came up with something new. Vortex Cannon versus Drone. We're talking about Anduril, a tech company that's working on making anti-drone technology, something that can be used to take out drones. Here's what that kind of looks like. You have this little box, and if needed, it opens up, and this thing comes out, which looks like basically a drone with a battering ram, I think is a good description of this. So they actually do a little demonstration for Mark Rober, who is the person behind this channel, about how they would defend against these drones. They have these towers set up, and somewhere far away, a person launches a drone from the road. Now, as you can see here, they're already tracking him, the car, the person. What's interesting is they're also able to track pretty much all the birds in the area. So as they're flying around, as the cars are moving, they are able to track them, the helicopters, birds, drones, etc., etc., etc. And once they engage with the drone, First of all, they try jamming the communications. Then they try hacking the drone. And if those two things fail, and keep in mind now, if this is an autonomous drone, it might be completely immune to jamming, hacking, etc. And then if that's the case, then they launch Anvil. What is Anvil, you ask? I'm glad you asked. It's this thing. It floats up and it, approaches the drone and gets into position, flying underneath it and keeping pace with it, waiting for the human operator to give the go command to take it out. And if it receives the go command, then what it does is it floats up and smashes the drone out of the sky. Boom. Now, in line with all of that, this just came out today. Forbes posted it April 22nd, 2024. The tech bros powering Silicon Valley's military fever dream with energy drinks, God, and nicotine. And they got this little picture, very American. Notice the little nicotine patches or nicotine chewing gum, whatever it is, sticking out. Weights, eagles, missiles, fire, sunglasses. Yeah, you get the picture. Venture investors like Andreessen Horowitz are swooning over the so-called Gundo bros who are building American hardware and software companies near LAX airport. So, quick aside, when we're talking about Andreessen Horowitz, Peter Thiel, the tech bros, etc., now Forbes isn't going to be aligned with them. They were behind this article. Who is Bev Bezos, the leader of the Tech's Elite EAC movement? So Forbes was, I believe, the one that doxed them, right? They identified who this person was and revealed his personal information. So he used an anonymous account to be on Twitter and kind of put his message out there. Forbes used the director of the National Center for Media Forensics and compared audio recordings of Bezos and talks given by Verdon and found that, it was the same person. And Forbes is revealing his identity, even though, the person was likely wanted to stay anonymous, but they're revealing his identity because we believe it is in the public interest as his influence grows. But in this article, they cover this party thrown by Andreessen Horowitz and the defense contractor Anduril to send a loud message. America is under threat, and now is the time to build. And this unofficial Stanford Defense Tech kickoff party was advertised as a public rebuke to the university, where weeks earlier, a student panel at the Stanford Graduate School of Business had denied an application to form a defense tech club. In the years since an employee revolt at Google prompted the tech giant to drop a major Pentagon contract in 2016, venture capital firms have responded by pouring more than $100 billion into defense tech companies, giving rise to a new generation of military-facing startup led by colorful patriarch founders like Palmer Luckey, the billionaire founder of Anduril, known for donning aloha shirts, a mullet, and signature goatee. Palmer is the founder of Oculus Rift.
You made some good coin from your sale of Oculus VR. Did any part of you just want to... No. How does Anduril approach the ethical implications that come with these new modern defense technologies?
Well, we try to focus on areas where autonomy and artificial intelligence can make weapons much scarier and also much more ethical. And a lot of those times, those two things go hand in hand. If you can make a weapon system that is more precise, that causes less collateral damage, that's terrifying to an adversary and has a much better deterrent effect. If I can make a weapon system that I can use not just tactically, but politically, meaning I know it's only going to kill the thing it's supposed to and it's going to ignore everything else, that's going to terrify my adversary because he knows I'm now actually willing to use that weapon. There's a lot of weapons where our adversaries say, I just know they're not going to use it. I know the United States.
Because there's too much collateral.
There's too much collateral. There's too much potential for things to go wrong. It's going to cause too many problems. Autonomy can make weapons more terrifying and more ethical at the same time. And there's kind of this push right now where people are pushing for ethics in AI weapons. First of all, a lot of these people, they're not familiar with the fact that autonomous weapons have been deployed for decades, arguably thousands of years, but we can talk about that later if you want. But certainly they've been deployed for decades.
Interesting.
And so people, they push with these slogans like, well, shouldn't you agree that an AI should never pull the trigger? Shouldn't a person always be making the final kill command?
Right.
I totally disagree with that because if you apply that, there are so many problems that you could easily solve that will not get solved. For example, what is the moral high ground in a landmine that cannot tell the difference between a school bus full of children and an invading tank? Is it really a good thing that it's not allowed for some arbitrary regulatory reason to not know the difference between those things and act accordingly?
Right.
There's a lot of people who would argue, yes, that is better. And I think that a lot of them are unrealistic. What they're really wishing is, well, I don't think that landmine should be out there, period. Unfortunately, we live in a world of violence where violence is a reality. I'm tired of people pretending that economic and trade ties are enough to stop large-scale conflict. This is what we've spent the last 20 years doing, and it's a disaster, and it's led to where the world is today, and it has the chance to ruin the world we might have tomorrow.
This Palmer Luckey fella is pretty interesting. He's not afraid to speak his mind. Here's what he thinks about people that are protesting the tech bros, as they're called, from developing various war applications, various war tech.
Imagine if the Department of Defense had done nothing to prepare for war for 40 years. And then as soon as war broke out, they started tweeting a lot and changed their profile pictures to a Ukraine flag and then started saying, we stand with Ukraine. The people who are actually tasked with solving these problems are, they generally have good planning, but there's only so much they can do without good technology. So I want to reiterate, if you only start building now, you've lost the chance to deter war from happening. That's the real purpose of the defense industry. It's not to fight wars. It's not to win war. It's to prevent wars from happening. Wars happen when one or both sides misestimate their probability of winning. If both sides agree that one side or the other is going to win, typically you end up with diplomatic resolution. When both sides disagree about the possibility of winning, that conflict actually breaks out.
But that's not even where he goes off the rails. He goes on a bit of a rant about people that didn't believe in him before.
I talked earlier about NPC thinking that prioritizes popularity over principles. What I'm about to do is in very, very bad taste, but I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah, we'll see. One of the people who I think embodies this type of NPC thinking, of going with what's popular and not being willing to ever reverse their position even when they're proven wrong, is Jason Calacanis. Let me read about some of the things he said about me over the years. Just a small sampling. Palmer Luckey, hideous. What an idiot, a moron. This guy Parker Luckey, a complete and utter moron. Jesus, this kid is an idiot. Palmer Luckey is just an idiot and a troll. A complete lack of moral character and leadership. Now, this doesn't include any of the lies that he's told about me. This doesn't include any of the lies he's told about my businesses. This doesn't include any of the terrible things that his co-hosts and guests have said about me over the years that went unchallenged and egged on.
So there he goes on a little bit of a rant about Jason Calacanis, who is, of course, one of the people on the All In podcast. Here's the interesting thing about that. He is currently at the All In podcast meetup seconds before he's about to meet all those people for the first time. Jason Calacanis, the other three members of the podcast, for the Q&A session. So he just dropped the bomb, and I don't think anyone's ready for it. Take a look.
Inevitably stupid and spiteful hot takes that Jason, his associates, and the many people like him who make money spewing bullshit are certainly going to be putting out there. Amen. Thank you.
Join us. Nice talk. Wow. Great to meet you in person.
Jason, what lessons have we learned here today?
Well, I mean, I guess
We were talking backstage and Jason's like, oh, I had to do so much to get this guy here because I think he hates me. And this was before this shit happened. And I was like, well, maybe you shouldn't talk shit about people. We talk a lot about this on the pod on mob behavior. And I think Mark Andreessen said the smartest thing I've read on Twitter in the year. I retweeted it and I took it away. And I think he pointed out that it feels safer to be in the mob than to not be in the mob.
Well, it always is.
Because when you're in the mob, you're part of the group, but you also get to attack. And it's safe to attack when you're in the group.
Right.
And I think, by the way, what you did there, one of the things I will highlight, irregardless of the content and the thing, that was very brave. And we don't see a lot of bravery nowadays. And I don't mean that, honestly, I don't mean that to disparage Jason, but like that sort of behavior where you stand up and you say something that will be highly controversial and go against the mob and against the tide and maybe piss off an entire room is something that we don't see a lot of.
Midjourney gets random.
Tell me, what do you see when you look at this? Midjourney, the text-to-image AI generation tool, just dropped a new prompt, and it's good. It's very good. So Midjourney by default runs in Discord, and the way you generate images, you go /imagine. Then you hit space and you type in your prompt. For example, joyous robot floating in ecstasy. Now, normally to kind of refine your prompt, you would usually add a style. You can say style Van Gogh or Unreal Engine or whatever you can think of really. But, and I never kind of thought of this, you never knew what styles were out there. You always kind of had to look for inspiration, see what else is out there, come up with your own styles. They had a bunch of styles listed. It was sometimes difficult coming out with brand new ones. But there's this new parameter, this new prompt, SREF, I'm guessing style reference, random. So if I let it run, and then I do that a few more times, this is what happens. This is Cat Samurai in a random style number 1, Cat Samurai in a random style number 2, Cat Samurai in a random style number 3, and you probably can guess, Cat Samurai in random style number 4. And this is style number 5. I can't even begin to guess what you would call this. It's a pixelated video game from the 90s. It's really dark and has a greenish tint. I have no clue. Here's a fantasy female thief hiding in shadows. A random style. I don't know what the style is called. I like it. Here's yet another style. This is what, some Renaissance painting. It's probably, I'm sure this style has a name. I probably couldn't think of it on the spot. Here's another take. Some sort of a fantasy light and glimmer something. Pretty cool. Crab wielding a sword. Style 1. Style 2, a neon futuristic. Again, I don't even know how to describe some of this stuff. But the fact that I can just say random and have it come up with a bunch of random styles is, I gotta say, pretty cool. Yet another crab wielding a sword. It's not doing too good with the wielding a sword part, but I love the colors. The reflections on the water here in the top right is pretty cool. And here's yet another style. Here in the top right, they actually resemble something like the crab holding a sword and wielding it. 2 bulls sitting at a bar. Style 1, 2, 3, and 4. Very colorful. Then we have a woman in a luxurious castle. Some sort of a storybook drawing. I ate something, I'm not sure what it is style. Notice there's almost like a 3D element to it. Some of the things tend to pop just a little bit. And here's another style, something posh and glamour and vivid. Then there's this. We have mythical hyper-intelligent creatures, style 1. Style 2, very simple, but I gotta say I kind of like this one. The top right, is that a watercolor and sketch? Style 3 and style 4. Next we have joyous robot floating in ecstasy. That's the very first prompt we saw. Kind of a cartoonish illustration. This is almost a anime-like, very pink red tones, Japanese influences. Then there's this, very interesting, the bottom left and the bottom right. I mean, all of these are pretty striking, I gotta say. Very interesting style, whatever that is. And this kind of a little bit more basic, simple, just the essentials. This would be great for a company, like a little mascot or something like that. Very, very simple, very futuristic. Now with Midjourney, it gives you 4 outputs, 4 different versions to choose from, and you have a few different options down here. U 1 through 4 and V 1 through 4. Hitting V gives you a few different variations, and U means upscale. So usually you do a few variations and then you upscale the final product that you want. And the squares go from the top left 1, top right 2, bottom left 3, and bottom right 4. So I like 2. I'll hit V2 and it'll give me more variations of this image. Now Midjourney, I think, has a free plan, but if you wanted to generate a lot of images, if you want them faster, then you have to pay for a premium plan. This is one AI company that's actually very profitable. Last I heard, they were making something like $200 million a year. AI startup Midjourney expects $200 million in revenue. Or for example, if we wanted to capture something like this, I'll say U1. Now upscale this number 1. And that's kind of how it looks like. You can upscale it more, zoom out, or you can do left, right, up, and down. But let's say I really liked this style and I want a different subject in it. How would I do that? So in the address bar, copy the URL of this image, and then we type in our new prompt, like Terminator robots. Then type in the parameter SREF. I think that's what you refer to that as a parameter. And then you type in the URL and hit enter. And load. And behold, there's the Terminator robot in that new style that we requested. I gotta say, I'm very happy right now. Mustafa Suleyman recently joined Microsoft AI. He will be the CEO of Microsoft AI, a separate division with headquarters in London, I believe. Mustafa was the co-founder of DeepMind, along with Demis Hassabis. He recently gave a talk at TED about the potential dangers of AI. Since he will be leading a pretty important division of AI, Microsoft, of course, is a global AI player, one of the leaders in some respects. It's important to understand what Mustafa thinks about AI. In his TED Talk, he outlines the great potential that AI has to bring a lot of good to the world, a lot of prosperity, technological progress. But he also points out 2 or 3 specific threats that we should be careful about. Here's a quick clip that I think captures the essence of his talk.
I think AI should best be understood as something like a new digital species. These AIs will be infinitely knowledgeable, and soon they'll be factually accurate and reliable. They'll have near perfect IQ. They'll also have exceptional EQ. They'll be kind, supportive, empathetic. But things really start to change when they develop what I call AQ, their actions quotient. This is their ability to actually get stuff done in the digital and physical world. And before long, it won't just be people that have AIs. Strange as it may sound, every organization, from small business to non-profit to national government, each will have their own. If we are to prioritize safety above all else, to ensure that this new wave always serves and amplifies humanity, then we need to find the right metaphors for what this might become. For years, we in the AI community, and I specifically, have had a tendency to refer to this as just tools. They can act autonomously if we allow them. And they do all this at levels of sophistication that is far beyond anything that we've ever known from a mere tool. I honestly think this frame helps sharpen our focus on the critical issues. What are the risks? What are the boundaries that we need to impose? What kind of AI do we want to build or allow to be built? But let's be clear, there is no path to progress where we leave technology behind. The prize for all of civilization is immense. We need solutions in healthcare and education to our climate crisis, and if AI delivers just a fraction of its potential, the next decade is going to be the most productive in human history. Here's another way to think about it. In the past, unlocking economic growth often came with huge downsides. The economy expanded as people discovered new continents and opened up new frontiers, but they colonized populations at the same time. We built factories, but they were grim and dangerous places to work. We struck oil, but we polluted the planet. Now, because we are still designing and building AI, we have the potential and opportunity to do it better, radically better. And today, we're not discovering a new continent and plundering its resources. We're building one from scratch. Sometimes people say that data or chips are the 21st century's new oil, but that's totally the wrong image. AI is to the mind what nuclear fusion is to energy: limitless, abundant, world-changing. So I think if you pay attention to a few specific capabilities, take, for example, autonomy. Autonomy is very obviously a threshold over which we increase risk in our society, and it's something that we should step towards very, very closely. The other would be something like recursive self-improvement. If you allow the model to independently self-improve, update its own code, explore an environment without oversight, I think that we're still some way away from that. I think it's still a good 5 to 10 years before we have to really confront that, but it's time to start talking about it now.
And isn't it true that if a problem happens, it could happen in an hour?
No, that is really not true. I think there's no evidence to suggest that. And I think that that's often referred to as the intelligence explosion. And I think it is a theoretical, hypothetical maybe that we're all kind of curious to explore, but there's no evidence that we're anywhere near anything like that. We will design the capability for self-replication into it if people choose to do that. And I would actually argue that we should not, right? That would be one of the dangerous capabilities that we should step back from, right? So there's no chance that this will emerge accidentally. I really think that's a very low probability. It will happen if engineers deliberately design those capabilities in, and if they don't take enough efforts to deliberately design them out.
This has been a Wes Roth production. Subscribe. The entire fate of the universe hangs in the balance.